A very warm welcome to the viewers of KCGC TV. I am Dr. Navkeerat standing before you on the behalf of Khalsa College of Education, Ranjit Avenue, Amritsar. I'm here today to talk about one of the very important thing, and that is role of communication skills in teacher education. Now, I have used two words, communication and skills. Why do we add the word skill with communication? The thing is very simple. See, if you Google the word skill is something that you can learn, and with means over a number of trials, if you give yourself a good practice, then that is something we can say polish over time. So a skill is something that is a learned behavior. Number two, if it is a learned behavior, it needs practice. And if we give ourselves good amount of practice, it becomes a part and strategy of our human behavior. So now, why we have added the word skill along with communication? Here comes the same definition of communication first. If we Google again the word communication has many aspects, and it is the most commonly used word in terms of today's technology and the modern era. The world has shrunk into a global village, the global village that we all are witnessing these days. For example, the field of medicine, the field of law, the field of legal pursuits, and many other fields like health, many other fields like construction, and various other fields use communication. When I say various other fields also use communication, that means it should be a very important aspect for human survival. Now, another question comes is, if communication is so much important for human survival, why we have ignored, or why we have not acknowledged the importance of communication? So let's begin with the definition of communication. The word communication comes from the Latin word that is communicare, which means to express or to share. Now, if communication means to express or to share, the question comes, what is the technical definition of the word communication? Now, the word communication basically comes from communication studies, which is a social science. If communication is confined to only humans, see, I would in a way discuss something over here. Even dogs communicate, even the birds have their own language. But here in today's discussion, we are just focusing on human communication. When we are focusing on human communication, that means that communication is a communal science. When we say communal science, that means it is largely and greatly affected with human behavior. Number two, after human behavior, we have many other factors like the health of the human being, the culture of the human being, the society of the human beings. So this communication word is not just affected by one aspect. It is a mix of a work in tandem of society and the culture at large. Now let's look at the technical definition of communication. Communication is the process of passing information, that is sending of the message, and understanding, receiving from one person to another through verbal or non-verbal means. Now we have two new words here, the verbal and the non-verbal. See, in verbal, we have two kinds of communication, the written and the oral communication. And from this, we can move on to a next slide, that is the types of communication. So broadly, we can say we have two types of communication, the verbal communication and the non-verbal communication. And if I say 50% of a human communication is basically the non-verbal communication, I don't think I would be wrong enough. Since the moment I'm here and I'm giving you this lecture, my hands are moving, my eyes are constantly moving, my voice is undergoing a particular tone, My voice is rising, falling. I'm following the various aspects of language control here also. So we not only miscommunicate in terms of words or in terms of written, say, letters, we also communicate non-verbally. Now, there's something very, very beautiful to be discussed over here. See, if you see this picture on your screen, it talks about verbal communication. Let's have a look. Verbal communication. The girl says, "Your food smells delicious." And the answer is, "Thanks." That means the girl over here is the sender and the boy is the receiver, right? But if you see, there's a bubble on your screen which says, "She wants a bite too." See now, I would say I'm going to rectify one of my statements when I said communication is of two types, the verbal and the non-verbal one. Let me add over here means another type of communication, that is para-verbal communication. Now guys, what is para-verbal communication? What you see in the form of a bubble on your screen, that the girl says, "It's delicious." The boy says, "Thanks." But in between this, "it's delicious" and "thanks," there is something, as we commonly know, means in English, read between the lines. So para-verbal communication is to means understand what is not even said in words. Now the classroom communication. The classroom communication is a very, very, say, delicate form of formal communication, because my role standing before you is to discuss communication skills in the field of teacher education. Now we should come back to the classroom and how this three types, verbal, non-verbal and the para-verbal communication, that is to means understand what is not even said clearly in the verbal form. So now we will be discussing these three types of means communication along with two charts before you so that I can make verbal and non-verbal very clear with you. Moving on to the next slide, we have non-verbal communication. Now, since the moment I've walked in, I'm talking about verbal, non-verbal, say means para-verbal means communication. Now, how do you define non-verbal communication? In front of your screen, there are few types the way we actually means communicate. Let's leave the screen and you just focus on me. Even when I am absolutely quiet, am I communicating something? The communication is anger. If I'm nodding in the class, then also I'm means communicating something. Yes, I'm nodding that I am, say means agreeing, or whatever you are saying, I'm comfortable with that. See on your screen, you can say means eye movements, hand movements, means appearances. Even if I am say means dressed in a certain way, it says something about my means personality. My say means her gestures, her postures, everything starting from one hair means on my head to my legs to shaking of my hands to the hand movement if I'm say means pointing towards somewhere. So every movement, every gesture has a meaning. Like I'm doing this, 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 that means I'm counting a list. So this is the non-verbal communication. And to say me summarize the whole difference between verbal and non-verbal, I would say that look, when we talk, we need to watch our same words. That is the verbal communication. But when we talk, we also need to watch our eyes, our smile, everything. Because a message is the sum total of verbal and non-verbal communication. And after summing up, we need to move to the next slide. That is the process of communication. We say that communication is a process. By saying process, I means it has a start, it has a middle, and it has a proper means ending. Now, who is the starter or who is the initiator of communication? The initiator of communication is the sender. The sender is the one who sends the message. Now, again, I would like you to have a look at the screen. The sender of the communication clearly has three functions. Function number one, formulates the message. formulates the message? Now it depends on the language. If I'm here in front of you, I have to say something to you. I am the sender. I need to transmit a message. I have to first formulate the message. After the message is formulated, I need to encode my message. Encoding is a technique where we put something into language or some say gestures or postures. For example, now I will encode my message in 3 types. Number 1, if I have to encode my message using non-verbal communication, I will be doing shh. It means that I'm asking you to quiet, stay quiet. If, for example, I want to put the same message into words, I will write, please be quiet. That is the written form. Okay. And if I have to use the verbal one, then I will be saying, please be quiet. So 1 message and 3 ways of encoding. Now I think encoding should be clear, that encoding means when you put something into a code. That code can be language, that code can be non-verbal communication, that code can be written format also. Then is the function of transmitting the message. After the message is formulated, encoded and transmitted, the message goes to the receiver. And from receiver, it is sent back to the sender. And this is the whole, we call it cyclic process. Why do we call it cyclic? Because the information, once it is encoded and sent to the receiver, it is decoded, the code is broken down and it is sent back to the sender again. Here I would like to quote an example. Suppose I visit a country, like I go to France, okay. Now I want to ask for a glass of water. If the language is not common with the sender and the receiver, then they won't be able to talk. So to communicate, we need the common language, the common code. The common code is English, the common code is Hindi, the common code is Punjabi. And if for chance I start speaking in Norwegian over here and I see Kandu Pratat, in Norwegian this means can you speak? But as we didn't have the same code, so the audience may not be able to understand what I'm saying. So after discussing the cyclic process of communication, we are jumping on to the next slide, that is essentials of effective communication. Now here, something I would like to stress upon. See, if I have 2 students in front of me, one is scoring 90% marks and one is scoring 60% marks. What is the difference between a 90% scorer and a 60% scorer? The difference clearly lies in their strategies and in their implementation of communication skills. How well you can communicate. And if I say a 60% scorer can be a better teacher than a 90% scorer, what do you mean? It clearly means that the 60% scorer one has better and effective communication skills. He or she is able to transmit what's in here effectively to his or her students. Now, if communication is so much important, why are we say, I won't say the word like bad communicators, but why we are not effective communicators of a language? Now, in case of pedagogy of English, because I'm taking pedagogy classes also, we have 2 languages, the L1 and the L2. By L1, I mean the mother tongue, that can be Punjabi or Hindi, any one of those. And L2 is the target language. L2 means English over here. So when I'm talking about effective communicator, I'm just not bothered about communicators of English. I am talking about communication in general. Same as medium of instruction for the lecture is typically English, the pure English form. I'm not using a bilingual method here. So let's jump on to the next slide. If you see your screen again, essentials of effective communication. What do we need in ourselves to be effective communicators? Number 1, clarity of purpose. Suppose I'm talking here on communication skills And if I start discussing stories from my old past or the things that are not same is interrelated with my speech. So clarity of purpose should always be there. Then is be well informed. Before you open up your mouth, you should open up your mind. You should be well versed, well researched about your topic. So now comes the next point, that is means analyzing the audience. By saying analysis of the means audience, what I mean is, if I'm talking to a 7 years old child, my way of talking, my tone, my rhythm, my same choice of words will be different as if I'm talking to a graduate or a postgraduate one. For example, if I'm talking to a 7 years old, I won't be able to use words like laudable, means illegitimate or things like that. I need to be very, very specific with whom I'm talking to. So we have covered 3 points: clarity of purpose, well informed means analysis of the audience. Then comes the next point and the most important one. We should always avoid jargons. Now what are these? These are the dialects we use. Now what is a dialect? Like in the case of Punjabi, the Baji Punjabi, and the same is Hadwabi Punjabi, and the say Himalwai Punjabi, they are the 3 dialects of Punjabi. And similarly, we also have say dialects in case of means English as well. For example, we have British English, we have means American English, we have English of say means Australian English. And now what are the jargons? Jargon is a language, is the word given to terminology used by a specific say means profession. Like in teaching profession, we have this word called means pedagogy, which is limited to only usage in means teacher education only. Now we'll jump on to next point. Communicate confidently. When you talk to somebody, you need to maintain good say means eye contact. You are not supposed to blink much. So you have to communicate with your say body as well. Then is the next one, be consistent. Do not take too many pauses in your speech. Keep it very simple. Do not include means extra details. Stay very focused, stay very calm, and stay very clear about what you're going to talk. Then is be straightforward. Be straightforward means you have to talk about the topic only. Here we are talking about the formal classroom communication. We are not talking about the means informal side, so I'm skipping on to that. Then is means address your target. Address your target means target whom do you want to talk to. Good listening. This is the most key point in our today's discussion. There's a proverb called we should learn to listen, to think, not to respond. That means that before we become good communicators, we need to become good listeners. Those who listen only to reply are not the good communicators. See, it's very deep, so we probably need another class for that. Then is communication in education. See, if you see this chart on your screen, communication can be divided into 2 parts, the content and the communication part. A good teacher will be the one who is able to manage content along with clarity and communication. Under content, we have methods and instructions. And under communication, now see, under communication, we will have all 3 types of communication. That is the verbal, non-verbal, and the paraverbal communication. A teacher, a good teacher, is only the one who can summarize all 3 means aspects of communication along with the mastery over the content in his or her teaching strategies. Now that comes to the sum up of my whole lecture. And the sum up is, there's a very famous quote: the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. We listen to only replying. The focus is on, okay, I have to answer this. If you just focus for a minute, the major part of communication is to stay calm. You can only pass on the message if you are calm as a sea. Now I'm using the proverb, calm as a sea. That means there should be lots going on your head, but on the means outer face, you should look very calm so that you can deal effectively with your communication skills. Thank you.